So let's start talking about the supplement game. And oh my goodness, we could talk about this every single week for the entire year, and we still probably wouldn't cover everything. So I'm going to keep it very simple. What's that?
And then at some point our conversations.
It is insane. So I'm going to keep it pretty basic so it gives you guys a little bit of an understanding, and then I'll leave time at the end so we can kind of go back and forth on various questions because, yeah, I obviously can't cover everything in 30 minutes here. So here is the biggest thing with supplements. And the biggest problem that I see with people when they start getting into what supplements should I take is they think it's going to be somewhat of a catch-all, fix-all sort of situation. And that's not exactly how that world works. It's going to be a common theme throughout our talk tonight is supplements are supplemental to what we're actually trying to achieve with various nutrients within the body. If that is going to be our number one driver of how we are going to get our nutrients, we might have a little bit more problems to deal with there. So one of the biggest things that we ask and we talk about in our office is sleep, stress, diet. We even talk about movement quite a bit. And when we talk about what chiropractic is it's trying to increase range of motion, increase movement. Reason being is that those are the key things from the beginning. How we absorb various nutrients is actually very dependent on our sleep. And if it's one of those things of when we're not getting enough quality rest, when we're not setting aside time for that, how much does that impact what we're actually taking in? If our sleep is terrible, but we're taking 18 bottles of supplements every single day, and how come my problem's not solved? Maybe we have to go back to the basics of what actually makes our bodies thrive the way that they should. But that being said, there is elements to where supplements are huge. Immune function. It's a very topical thing right around now. Especially when we start talking about the allergies, different things like that. How do we recover from things? How do we recover from workouts? What different things help us, our body respond and repair itself that much better? Inflammation. Talk all about that all day long. So we're going to start picking away at some of the most common ones. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is immensely important to how our body operates. I'm going to jump down here. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. So a lot of times people don't think about a vitamin being a hormone, but it actually kind of behaves in that way. It actually behaves a lot differently than a lot of other vitamins that we talk about. One of the things I love about this is it's big for the immune system. So, immune system obviously keeps us functioning, keeping us alive, keeping us doing all of those different things. Vitamin D is a big component of our bones. We coincidentally have an all-female audience today. Anyone ever heard, hey, you have bone density issue, take your calcium, vitamin D because of loss of bone density? There's some backing to that. There's a lot of drivers towards that. Inflammation, again, that's another branch off of the immune response sort of situation. So immunity, inflammation, it's a way that our body repairs itself, a way that it overcomes different things that come up against us. Here's the problem. Not only do we have all of those things stacked against us, is an overwhelming amount of the population is deficient in vitamin D. Indoor living. I'll talk about this for a long, long time, and I think I have a spinal workshop coming somewhat soon. We really got to talk about the benefits of the sun. Some of those that were here with our sunscreen spinal workshop a few weeks ago, we talked a lot about the benefits of the sun and how we probably shouldn't be super scared of the benefits that it provides. That's also why sunscreen is on there. Vitamin D can be created by our own body through sunlight. Funny enough, it has a big tie to cholesterol, actually turning cholesterol that we need to turn vitamin D and actually create it with our body. Another conversation for another spinal workshop. But in the winter, we're not in the sunlight because it's 5 degrees outside, and who wants to be in shorts and a t-shirt out in the sun? And realistically, in the Midwest, it is extremely difficult to even get a sufficient amount of vitamin D through just sunlight alone. Now, the advantages is we do have various foods that can help us within our diet as well. What are some food items that you've heard of that are big with vitamin D? Anybody got anything? Milk. Milk's a good one. A lot of vitamin D is actually put into milk. So the way that they describe that is when you put vitamins into a food, it's called fortification. So some things are fortified with various B vitamins, especially when you start talking pregnancy, right? You get fortified cereals. They're adding extra vitamins into a lot of those different things. That's one of them. Big one is dairy. Again, you can have your salmon. Fish is very good with a lot of these different supplements that we're going to talk about. Now, when you start getting into the fish game of it all, wild caught, where the avenue we need to stay in. Typically when you start getting into farmed fish, the nutrients go completely out the window when you start getting into that conversation. So the more you can get your wild caught salmon, the better. Cod's another good one, sardines. And I usually like to be very careful with which fish I'm typically consuming with that, but it's a huge thing. Aging. Like it or not, time keeps ticking with all of us. So the reason why aging actually happens is because we talk about metabolism slowing down. Well, how our body actually takes that sunlight and converts it to vitamin D starts to slow down as well. So the older we get, the more sunlight we need to equal that amount of vitamin D that we used to have 15 years ago.
Is that why we retired to Florida?
It's not a bad thought. It's not a bad thought on that. But you bring up a really good point, because let's think about it. Where does cold and flu season usually take most hold? It's in the northern states. Well, how come you're not getting sick as often when you're down south? You're spending more time in the sunshine. And I usually try to, let's take it one step further. When's cold and flu season? Just throw out months. December, January, February, like those are your cold and flu months. What have we been doing since October? Hoodies, crew necks, long sleeve, bring out the jeans, bring out the flannel. What we did is we just immediately went from all the last 4 or 5 months of basking in the sunlight because it feels awesome. The sunlight's gone, we got some cool breeze. We immediately completely hide our skin from skin exposure. What happens 2 months after that? Everyone's getting sick. It's just timelines of cycle of how we do it. Not many people typically get cold and flus in the middle of August. Can it happen? Absolutely. Just a lot less likely with that. One more thing about vitamin D. If I can go back. There we go. One more thing about vitamin D that is different than the rest of the vitamins that we'll talk about. Obviously, I'm going to spend the most time on this because I do think it's the most important. If you are going to take a supplement of vitamin D, when is the best time to take it? Does anybody know?
With food
With food. Do you know why?
for better absorption?
Yes. Do you know why? You're 2 for 2 so far on
Because
here.
it's a fat-soluble vitamin.
I am so proud of you, Donna. So, a lot of vitamins we can just absorb with water. That's easy. Vitamin D is one of the 4 vitamins that we need that basically needs a carrier of a fat molecule to absorb. Now, don't get overboard with fat. Usually, like I'll say, is if you have breakfast and you have a piece of toast with a little bit of butter on it, that's plenty. Like, it doesn't need to be like an extremely fatty meal, but even butter has the appropriate amount of fats that help transport that vitamin D into your tissues. We talk about it more with hydration, of water in your body is great, But if the water doesn't actually go into your tissues, we're not hydrated. That's usually when people say that they're just peeing out water like crazy, is because your body's not actually absorbing any of it. You're just drinking it and shuttling it right out. So actually getting it into your tissues is what we're looking for the most. Vitamin C, right? You're sick. Have an orange. Right? Vitamin C, citrus fruits are typically our big drivers of what is very rich in vitamin C. I want to talk mostly about these two. Collagen and tissue repair, collagen production. So a lot of our tissues are ligaments, a lot of our things that hold us together, it's a lot of basically collagen. Typically, this is more prominent in women, but it is not exclusive to women, is collagen loss is a big problem that happens with aging. Anybody heard of that before? Mm-hmm. Tell you to get on a collagen supplement. Some yes, I see some head nods. Again, what it is, it's just your connective tissue to make sure that there is stability within our ligaments, our tissues, our tendons. It's really what we're looking for. But vitamin C actually does a lot with producing a lot of that collagen, which comes up with that tissue repair. I always like to say, we can't build something if we don't have the materials. And that's really what it comes down to with a lot of these supplements too. If we don't have the materials to help build antibodies, we're not going to create antibodies, we're most likely going to get sick. If we give the body the tools to do what it needs to do to run through its processes, then it starts clicking the way that it should. Now, not too many people are deficient in vitamin C. Why? Because it's everywhere. It's one of those things where it's so easily attainable, and on the flip side, so easily absorbable that our body's able to hang on to it a lot easier. So that's one of those things where you rarely ever hear of someone saying they have a vitamin C deficiency. It just doesn't happen very often because the body's able to handle it so much easier. Zinc. Probably the lesser known of the three that we've already talked about. But what they are, in all of us doctors, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc are three that we look for the immune system boosters. Those three work together to really make sure that the immune system is functioning properly. So when I say, someone says, hey, what vitamins, what should I take, what supplements should I take for my immune system? If I'm only allowed to pick a couple, these are the three I'm picking. It's because typically it allows that body to function the way that it should. Again, I want to give the body the most amount of building blocks and materials to make sure it is good to go with whatever it needs. If I have a little bit of extra, I'm fine with that. But at least at that point, I want to make sure I give myself the best chance to fight everything off. So, if you're sick a lot, could be an indication. And it's following that same sort of course. The reason why this one is usually my more indicator for frequent illness is because a lot of times people are looking for the other two. But in fact, it takes all three to really get us to where we need to go. Hitting of the nails, white nails, healing very slow. Again, healing is an immune system thing. The immune system's not functioning, everything heals a lot slower. So we want to make sure we give ourselves the best chance for success. Now we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. This is one that we talk about a lot in the office because this is so much to do with inflammation. Curcumin and turmeric are often paired together because they basically activate each other at that point. But the biggest reason why I would want somebody to have this has to do with more with inflammation. Right? Think of your natural or your typical anti-inflammatories, your NSAIDs. Does everybody know what NSAIDs are? Tylenol, ibuprofen, Aleve, Advil, take your pick. Those are your typical over-the-counter things that people will take when they feel aches and pains. Those aches and pains are a lot of times correlated to various inflammatory processes of joints. So we hear it a lot in the office. But what this is this actually breaks this down and it's a lot nicer on your body and your organs. Organs are very happy when we go this method versus just straight chemicals and hope for the best here. So, what turmeric is, and a lot of people cook with this. You've probably seen this. Now, this is where things are a little bit different and a little bit, you have to really read the labels. I know we talked about grocery items a couple weeks ago, but this is where we really look at the labels. There's a big difference between what your source of turmeric is. So there's typically two different things. Turmeric extract and turmeric root extract. Those are the two different deciphers that I've typically seen. They'll have different sort of components there. I've also read a couple of mixed studies on this where cooking the turmeric drastically decreases the amount of active inflammatory. It's just like when you cook anything, is you're gonna change the chemical structure of what is actually in there. So if we're testing this as basically a powder of turmeric that we would normally cook with, and then we add a bunch of heat to it, it's going to change the molecular component, and now how much of that is actually damaged, essentially. It's always a big conversation with protein. Technically, your well-done steak has a little bit less protein content than your blue steak. Just as I saw the head nods of like, no, not having blue. Don't worry, I'm on the same page with that. But that does change the components that we can take on within. Same sort of conversation comes with turmeric. But biggest thing, like I said, is that natural anti-inflammatory. So it's really going to help the joint and how we get that inflammation out of there. It's a conversation that I like to have with patients all the time. Inflammation is not bad. Inflammation that sticks around is. What inflammation always is inflammation is always present when there is damaged tissue. Again, these are your trucks that bring all the building blocks to help repair the bridge, that help repair the road, help repair your tendons. So, we need inflammation to areas when there's damaged tissues. But when it sticks around for a long time, that's when you start creating the traffic jam. You have too many trucks, none can get into the job site. So we want to be very cognizant of what inflammation is. There's too often I hear people just say inflammation's always bad. It's not a full answer to that point. But when we go in through phases and it's there for a long time, now we start running into issues there. This kind of comes back to the beginning of how we started tonight's conversation. Supplements are great, and we'll get into some questions of different things that people like looking into, but they gotta be your extra. If we're looking for different foods that we want to get, if it's not in the diet, probably not gonna get there. We're not gonna get there by supplementation alone. And so whenever someone asks me about certain supplements, I always start with, what's the diet look like? If the diet is full of processed and very nutrient-weak foods, and we're trying to over-supplement the diet that's wrong in the first place, it's going to be a losing battle. And so that's always where we have to start. Supplement's not going to be a cure-all. It just isn't. But when we add it on top of things that we are doing right, it drastically increases our chance for success. And at the end of the day, that's all we want to do. So yeah. Oh, it doesn't show up on the TV. It's you gotta be able to sleep good. You gotta have the diet good. You gotta be moving good. That's how the body is set up to thrive. replacement needed. I heard that once from a patient of like, oh, I'll just take my supplements and I'll be good. That's not exactly how that works. Like, if I just take enough curcumin and turmeric, then my joints won't hurt, so then I'm good. It's like, okay, you're kind of doing the same thing with the ibuprofen and Aleve, Advil, whatever. We're just going to try to over supplement to cover everything up, and then we're good. But this is your biggest thing. When we're adjusted, when we're moving, we have proper nutrition, and we have the proper rest. Does it mean and guarantee that we're going to be perfect and have success? No. I talk about this a lot with x-rays, and some of you may have heard this. If someone has a perfect set of x-rays, it's like they're walking down the sidewalk of Maple Avenue. There's still a chance you get hit by a car. Especially Maple Avenue. Would not be shocked if someone bounces over the curb. If our x-rays are absolutely terrible, it's like walking in the middle of the street of Maple Avenue. There's a chance you don't get hit by a car. But what you're doing at that point is you're playing the likelihood game. Is the more things that we do that set ourselves up for success, the better likelihood we have that we'll have more optimal outcomes. And that's all we're doing. We're playing the game where we're stacking the cards in our favor with every single thing that we do. Every single time we are making progress towards giving ourselves a chance to win. And it's huge. You don't build health when you're sick. You build it daily. We talk about a lot in our spinal workshops is in every moment you're either moving closer towards health or closer towards disease. Never in any moment are we stationary. We all held our breath for as long as we can. We're moving one way versus the other. So even every breath we take, we're making steps towards better health because we want our body to thrive. So everything happens that way. Every adjustment makes your body talk to itself better. Every positive meal either does things to benefit your health, or if we're through the drive-thru, probably going the other way. And we all have felt that. We can talk about it all day long. Now, that being said, did I go through the drive-thru this weekend? Yeah, I did. But that being said, again, you're going to play that game. You're going to definitely feel different after you do that. Every supplement gives you over the top. We're going to get so far with our diet. We're going to get so far with everything we do. If we could get everything perfectly right off the rip with our diet, it's better. There's a lot of things that our body needs, and we slowly can add those things up. Sleep. Just try. I know it's easier said than done, but we gotta try. At the end of the day, become more resilient. And that's really the biggest thing. Health is not accidental. It is built. What building blocks are you using to make sure that you give yourself the best outcome? At the end of the day, that's really what we're looking for. So, now we have a few minutes left. I do want to get into some more specific questions that you guys may have. I know I only covered a couple of them because, like I said, there's a million of them, and we have a bunch more up there that we have available, and there's different ways to do that. So, any specific questions that any of you guys have on one?
Don't you have to have K2 with your D?
It is a good thing to activate that. So, I know a lot of newer compounds are putting them together in terms of that. So yes, it does increase the activation of that, of vitamin D as well. So yes, I do see that more and more where they're actually crammed together. Yeah. Yes, 100%. Any other questions on supplements?
Where do you find good ones?
That is the greatest question I could have heard. So here's the thing with supplements. It's not regulated by anything. And it is darn near impossible when you go to the grocery store, the supplement aisle. There are 18 different brands and dosages of vitamin D, and I have no idea what to do. Because it gets very difficult. And because there's that regulation issue with quality, at the end of the day, we gotta find a brand that we trust that's actually worth the dollars and cents that you could spend. Because
You can look at your labels.
yeah, I mean, again, you just said labels. Again, we talk about the turmeric. I've had someone come in, they were like, I've been taking turmeric forever, and it doesn't seem to work. Because I brought it up in the office. I go, send me a picture of the bottle. I think they ended up bringing it in at their next appointment, and it was the wrong one. Like, so they've been spending how much money, how much, all this stuff. I know a lot of the supplements that I usually will look for and purchase are companies that also pair the research that they're basing their product off of with it. Which a lot of that stuff at that point, basically you need a provider number to really be able to access that. It's typically not sold at insert grocery store name that you wish. Usually I use a store name, but you know, I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus with that one. But it is one of those things where, to me, could it still be wrong? Sure, that's called research, because it's a constantly moving target, and we can get into the conversation of research another day of the political aspect of all of research nowadays. But at the end of the day is, do I have more confidence in this brand X than brand Y? Because brand X at least has a study of however level of strength that actually shows this is why we show that this is effective. Yeah. But yeah, there's never a straight answer. That's why I always go back to, like, supplements are great, supplements are needed. I take plenty of supplements myself. At the end of the day, the diet's gonna be your number one. Your diet's gonna be number one. Because your body knows what to do with it. It's just like, yeah, I love protein shakes to give me that little extra, but realistically, if I'm not getting enough protein in my diet, it's the same sort of conversation there.
I do really well for a while, and then I eat like trash for a while.
Yep.
And then I do really well, and then it's a cycle.
So does everybody.
Yeah.
So the thought that you could beat yourself up on that, no, don't do that. Because here's the thing. What's the old Chinese proverb? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the next best time is today. Is you're gonna slip up, you're gonna fall, you're gonna go to in and out because you're on the West Coast and we don't get that luxury around here, and doggone it, it's good. But at the same time is, do you counter that with the various snacks to get back on the train? If you're doing the right thing 80% of the time, you are doing overwhelmingly well. If it's the bar of holding myself to this perfection, you're always gonna fall short, you're always gonna be disappointed in yourself, and you're always gonna feel like a failure. That's the reality of it. Never do I expect perfect. I don't expect perfect posture, I don't expect perfect diet, I don't expect you to hit your water goal every single day. Like, that's just unrealistic. But at the end of the day, if you're very conscious of those things and always making strides in the correct direction, you're gonna win a whole heck of a lot more than you're gonna lose. You're stacking the deck. Please don't walk down the middle of Maple Avenue. I'll say that now.
But with that being said, the way they're playing with food now, how do you know what to eat? I'm afraid to eat food out there,
Keep it as simple as physically possible.
even at that.
I know.
You can't go out and just buy some kind of lettuce.
100%.
Because they're putting
Mhm.
in lettuce.
There's so much
Yeah, aren't
pesticides
they
on it and all
spraying
that
fruit with
stuff.
stuff that you can't
Yeah.
even wash off now?
Yes,
Yep.
I mean, this,
I mean, we talked about it a lot with the grocery store. Spinal workshop that we had a couple weeks ago. I know some of you guys were here for that. It's hard. I'm never gonna sit here and tell you it's not. I'm seeing more and more people that eventually they hit their breaking point and they say, I'm ripping out the grass, part of, 20 feet by 20 feet section of yard,
I keep trying to talk her into that.
and it's,
Chickens and
I'm putting in a garden.
chickens
to where,
and
at least at that point when you're growing it yourself, you know what's going in it, you know what's going on it, you know you're gonna learn these different things, you know what's in the soil, you know you and me could we could have a long conversation about the farming industry nowadays, but if you want me to future cast it 20 years, 30 years, I wouldn't be surprised if almost every home has their own plot of garden, and it's just, at least at that point you know what you're getting. Yeah, like I said, I got a friend I've had conversations back and forth, and they're changing the different definitions of what qualifies as organic nowadays. Is you can make a GMO seed that actually can qualify and slip under the label of organic, but it's still, oh yeah, it gets very murky waters at that point. But here's also the other side of that coin. You're doing the best you can. So don't go out and just beat yourself up and feel like the world is hopeless because we have the odds stacked against us. At the end of the day, you're buying lettuce. You're not buying Oreos. Now, are Oreos good? Yes. Do we need to have them all the time? Probably not. But
they're full of chemicals.
But if that's your 20% buffer of where you got to give yourself some grace, there's your 20%. So again, it's just going to be a constant battle, and there's never a right answer. There's never a perfect answer. But at the end of the day, if you're making conscious efforts to make steps in the right direction, give yourself a lot of credit because there's a lot more people that aren't.